Hi, how you doing? I'm sure all of you watching this know Ponyville like the back of your hoof, right? The location that made My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. But if you think about it a little deeper, you start to realise despite Ponyville being this quiet little town, it somehow has a train station, a boutique, a farm, a full spa, an interdimensional portal to Tartarus down the road, and oh yeah, a huge haunted forest right next to it. And all of this, yet it never seems to have more than what, 30 residents? Now, of course, that's a bit of an exaggeration, and I'll get into Ponyville's actual population later, but the point stands. Ponyville is one weird place. I mean, it's the epicenter of all of Equestria's disasters, the hometown of 6 national celebrities, and has more cows than laws. So, in this video, I'm going to break down why Ponyville might not be as normal as you remember. Hope you enjoy. The thing that got me started down this Ponyville rabbit hole was when I was simply wondering, how big is Ponyville? If you look up maps, they're pretty inconsistent, and even the official ones aren't always accurate to the show. In fact, it seems like sometimes Ponyville is just a small village, but then other times it's this sprawling hub of activity. As mentioned before, you've got the full train station, a boutique, a spa, and countless other shops and businesses that pop up in the background. Take this long shot from Magic Jewel, for example. It's implied that Trixie is blocking off all of Ponyville from Twilight, meaning that what we see here is supposed to be the entire town. But that makes it even harder to understand how it could have so many amenities. It's even more unbelievable if we count Sweet Apple Acres as part of Ponyville, which most maps and fans seem to do. If we assume that Sweet Apple Acres and the rest of Ponyville fit inside this small space, then the town can't have more than like 10 buildings, and probably no more than 30 residents. Definitely not the hundreds that some people online have speculated. In fact, the population estimates are all over the place. I've seen several numbers as low as 40, and then as high as 3,000. But 3,000 is just ridiculous. There's no way there's enough room in this little town for that many ponies. And don't even get me started on the true population of Equestria, which ranges from 1,500 to 80 million, but that's a whole other video on its own. For now, we're just talking about Ponyville, where the population seems to double whenever the plot needs it. Look at this shot from Ghostbusters, or any other crowd scene really. Where do all these ponies come from? We never see them regularly. The most we get normally are background ponies like Bonbon, Lyra and Minuet, which total about 20 to 30. So when you add the main 6, their relatives, and the occasional side character, we're looking at maybe 50 to 60 ponies in Ponyville. With such a small, rarely seen population, we're left to wonder why all the complicated infrastructure. My running theory? The major train station and railroad in Ponyville are probably just there to transport all the extra ponies for crown scenes. Ponies that must come from somewhere else, because I refuse to believe there are this many ponies that exist in Ponyville that we never see. And that's just the size of the place. Geographically, it's quite a headache to think about as well. Are we sure the founders were thinking straight when they decided to put the town there? Because Ponyville is very close proximity to both a huge haunted forest and a literal portal to hell. The Everfree Forest always confuses me anyway. In Season 1 we're supposed to believe that it's some creepy, dangerous place, yet it has no kind of warnings or signs to show that it is. And in later seasons we see why, as characters go in like it's nothing and don't seem to have the same consideration about the danger of the forest. But that doesn't mean it isn't an incredibly dangerous place, with creatures like Ursa miners and mages, dragons, chimeras and more lurking. Probably all less than a couple miles from the peaceful town of Ponyville. And not one of the residents seems to care about this either. They also don't seem to care about the portal to Tartarus, or in other words, hell, that is a few minutes down the road from where they live. On multiple occasions, has been an active cause for concern, for instance in It's About Time, where the Cerberus guard escapes and rampages through the town. To be honest, things rampaging through Ponyville is a very common occurrence. It is by far the most disaster-prone place in Equestria. I'll get back to this point later, but seriously, why is Ponyville so close to Tartarus? Of course I know we never get an explicit mention of the entrance's exact location, but still, we know it's close to Ponyville because of course a Cerberus rampaged through Ponyville after leaving its post, and of course we can assume it's in walking distance as the main 6 walk the Cerberus back. Despite all this possible and literal danger that threatens Ponyville on the regular, it still somehow is full of fancy amenities. I mean, Rarity often wishes she lives in Canterlot, and the Canterlot ponies seem to look down on Ponyville as some sort of lower class, uncivilized place. But the ponies in Ponyville really don't have it that bad. They have a seemingly excellent spa and of course Rarity's Carousel Boutique, as well as high quality produce coming from farmers like the Apples. Sugar Cube Corner provides quality baked goods, and the Golden Oak Library, which, while we barely see any ponies use, is still a full expansive library in the centre of town. And of course we can't forget in Season 5+, Princess Twilight's castle is literally right there, dominating the Ponyville skyline, if you can call it that. Ignoring the previous questions like why is there all this for seemingly so few ponies, we have to ask, who's paying for all this? Is Mare secretly an entrepreneurial billionaire who, after setting herself up for life, decided to invest money into a town? Or maybe from Canterlot, Princess Celestia funds all the settlements in Equestria. But then that poses even more questions, like why are some places clearly richer than others? I mean, just look at Appaloosa compared to Manhattan. It's obvious which one has highest spending budget. Also, something I realised while watching Applejack's Day Off. What happens if something needs maintenance in Ponyville? Because here, the entire spark gets put at a standstill till Applejack fixes it. So is that the case for the rest of Ponyville? Do they just wait for AJ to eventually come by and fix it for them? Because I don't see any Ponyville maintenance team, or even any private plumbers, electricians, or handy ponies of any sort. Now I'll admit I may have just forgotten a situation where we did see a character like this, but the only time I remember we saw some ponies that were kind of like that was in the mysterious Mare Duel, where we had the builders doing construction in Ponyville. That's all just what is there that doesn't make sense, because there's also things that aren't there that at least I feel should be. For instance, Twilight's castle appears, yet no new infrastructure is built in Ponyville, and that just confuses me. There isn't any kind of security or protection, no guard posts, not even a gateway into Ponyville. The castle is literally just plonked down and then they call it a day. If a villain or monster came into Ponyville while the main six is sleeping or away, what can any pony really do? This question obviously applies when the castle isn't there, but I feel like said monster or villain is more likely to attack a town if a famous princess's castle is in the middle of it. Although, to be fair, that hasn't stopped them before. Coming back to that point from earlier, Ponyville has to be statistically the least safe place to live in Equestria. I mean, to list a few hazards that have been swept through it. Parasprites, Discord, Bugbear, Ursa Minor, that one creepy dream thing, Tirek, Cerberus, Cow Stampedes, and Nightmare Moon, to name a few. So why do ponies still live here? I seriously don't get it. Whenever one of these disasters happen, the ponies are all panicky and scared, running all over the place, but then we just have to assume that after the main six deal with whatever the threat is rampaging through the town this time, they all just go back to their normal daily lives. In fact, it seems that throughout the whole show, no pony ever moves away from Ponyville. The closest thing we get to that I can think of is Cranky Doodle, who moved to Ponyville. Maybe they know that the main six will deal with it. For them it's just a usual Sunday waiting until the main six best the foe or save the town from the threat. And why Ponyville? I get once Twilight's castle is there it makes sense since there is a princess's castle, but before that, all kinds of stuff was still happening to Ponyville, especially because Canterlot, a much more important place, is seemingly quite close. It's confusing why so many bad things seem to target the random harmless town of Ponyville. Let's just give Ponyville a pass on that though. Let's just say it's a very unlucky town. Why doesn't it have some kind of protection against these kind of events? I mean, with disaster level threats such a common occurrence, it makes sense for Ponyville to have 1, some sort of defense system, especially by later seasons, and 2, a disaster response team, which I'm semi-convinced they have anyway, we just never see them. As no matter how much damage happens as a consequence from one of these attacks, the next episode, everything seems fine. So someone has to be clearing everything up. At this point, I think the ponies are just desensitized. Like, they see a portal opening in the sky and just go, oh well, guess it's Tuesday. But then again, they do always seem to run in fear, so they are somewhat affected by these threats. Just the second they're over, life in Ponyville goes right back to normal. Looking back to another point earlier, where even is the Royal Guard during all this? Canterlot's like right over there. You'd think one bugbear attack would warrant at least a single guard posted nearby, especially once Twilight's castle appears. But honestly, maybe that's why the town puts up with all this chaos. Because the 6 ponies saving their flanks every other day live right there. And yet somehow, the same ponies who regularly punch gods in the face are treated like your average small town weirdos. This I find very confusing. Ponyville, the hometown of world-famous heroes that have saved the entirety of Equestria multiple times, has absolutely no hints of this, which, while yes it does create a more appealing aesthetic, I think is extremely unrealistic. Just as a comparison, imagine the entire Avengers team lived in a small country town. Well, let's just say it wouldn't be a small country town for that long, especially once the castle appears. There's no way that some pony wouldn't see this group of possibly the most famous ponies in Equestria, under the 3 princesses, as a way to profit, and construct some kind of tourist trap kind of thing in the town. There's no gift shop, no element of Harmony Museum, not even a dinky plaque that says Twilight Sparkle lived here. Like, come on. At the very least, you'd expect the spa to have a sign out front, frequented by national heroes. Speaking of, where are the tourists? I've been saying this a lot, but especially when Twilight becomes a princess, where are all the tourists? The only time I feel we get something like this is in Twilight time, where the foals really want to hang out with Twilight since she's a famous princess. But other than that, there's basically no occasions where her, or indeed any pony's fame, is acknowledged while in Ponyville. In Canterlot, for instance, when Twilight appears at summits and that kind of thing, there's tons of ponies in the crowd. Are we really supposed to believe that none of these ponies would want to visit the hometown of Princess Twilight Sparkle and her famous friends? Like, Twilight has a literal crystal palace just there. Imagine seeing that on the horizon and thinking, let's go around it. No crowds, no press, no Canterlot nobility dropping by, it's like the castle is invisible to everyone except the main cast. Twilight goes to Canterlot plenty, the princesses go to the Crystal Empire plenty, and both of these locations get tons of external visitors there to see the princesses, but never Ponyville. It's almost as if they don't acknowledge it as that kind of location, despite it again having a massive crystal palace in the middle, and having a higher concentration of famous ponies than any other place in Equestria, especially in later seasons, where Dashi is a Wonderbolt, Twilight is a princess, and Rarity is a well-known Equestria-wide fashionista. The only possible explanation at this point is that the entirety of Ponyville is under some sort of anti-tourism spell or something. And speaking of things Ponyville just quietly accepts without question, can we talk about the cows? I know this might seem a little off topic, but it's been bugging me for a while and they do live in Ponyville, so I'm counting it. These cows aren't just regular animals, they're fully sentient. They speak fluent English, hold conversations with ponies, express emotions, and seem to understand complex situations, which would be fine if they weren't also treated like livestock. They live in barns, they get herded, and they're clearly being cared for by ponies in the same way we care for cows in the real world. And that raises some deeply uncomfortable questions. Are the cows okay with this arrangement? Do they have rights? Why are they living under what appears to be weird, casual forms of interspecies classism? Like, imagine being able to talk, think, and feel like every pony else, but still be relegated to the barn while every pony gets to go off to save Equestria. It's kind of wild that no one ever questions this. Not the ponies, not the cows, not even the show. Other animals in the show are either not properly sentient, at least not to this extent, like critters like Winona, Tank, or the pigs are examples of that, or completely sentient and equal to the ponies, like donkeys, mules, and griffins, but not cows. There's something about them that makes them both sentient and cared for and controlled by ponies. How do they not question this? It's kind of like that eldritch thingy where an ant gets all the knowledge of humans for 1 minute and then goes back to being an ant, never being able to understand or communicate what it saw to the other ants, but still knows that it saw it. Except in this example, the cows do constantly have all the knowledge, like the ponies, except still get treated as if they don't, which, to me at least, is just confusing, and could probably prompt a bunch of philosophical arguments and stuff like that. I promise this is related to Ponyville, don't worry. Look, right there. The cows are in Ponyville, so yeah, this counts. I don't want to hear anyone saying otherwise. So yeah, Ponyville makes zero sense. It's a geographically cursed, disaster-prone town built next to a haunted forest and a gateway to hell, filled with oblivious citizens, casual classism towards sentient cows, and no visible infrastructure to handle the fact that gods routinely walk around the market square. But somehow, that's exactly why I love it. Ponyville doesn't try to be realistic, it doesn't follow logic, it just is. And in a way, that's kind of beautiful. It's a town that can be ground zero for an ancient evil in one episode and then host a bake sale in the next with the same cheerful energy. And yeah, it's probably the worst place in Equestria to live, but it's also the most interesting. Ponyville is chaotic, charming, nonsensical, and completely irreplaceable. Might not make any sense, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's going to do it for this week's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. And this is all in good fun, of course. I don't actually think this deeply about Ponyville whenever it comes up on screen. If you did enjoy, please consider liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already, since we're so close to 2,000 subscribers. And with that, thanks for watching. I've been Monodash, and I'll see you sometime soon.